Remember when it used to be a bad thing when men erased women? Feminists used to get crazy about it. Now we have women pretending to be men on the cover of Sports Illustrated at the Olympics. It's never ending. What happened to feminism? I'm Dr. Duke, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dr. Duke Show. We are the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. As usual, it's Friday, and Friday means it's time for Katie Petrick to give us her view of the health of our republic.
Hey, Team Healthy Republic. If you're new around here, I'm Katie, and I want this once great republic to get back in the saddle, Gene Autry style, and ride off into the sunset. Right now, we live amongst a bunch of entitled millennials who would never ride a horse because that's animal cruelty.
How dare you!
Anyway, today I'm talking about my generation and how we have no understanding of freedom and what comes with that freedom, i.e., responsibility. Now, before you start yelling at me through the screen, I do understand that there are plenty of people in every generation who don't actually take responsibility.
My responsibility as president will be to represent the whole nation. And I want you to know that I'll work as hard for those who voted against me as those who voted for me.
Exhibit A. I'll get to Joe's contribution in all this later in the video, so stay tuned. If you do love freedom and actually take responsibility, unlike Joe, please take a hot second to give a good old subscribe to the new Healthy Republic YouTube page so we can build it up. We had to start a new channel because we are so blatantly censored. YouTube even told us so. And that brings us to today's question. What is your biggest pet peeve about the millennial generation? I know. I just opened up Pandora's box, and it will never be shut again. Let me know in the comments, and then I'll make sure to have my safety blanket wrapped around me while reading your responses.
These are the dumbest people I've ever met in my life. Not personally, just as a group. Do me a favor, put some cash in your pocket, grease your debit cards every $1.17 purchase. I get so tired of standing behind on a mini mart. That's $1.17. Here's my debit card. You don't have a buck and a quarter?
Apparently not. A new survey by Payments and Lending Club shows that 60% of millennials, specifically the ones making more than $100,000 per year, are living paycheck to paycheck. Let me repeat, 3 of every 5 millennials who make more than $100,000 per year are living paycheck to paycheck. And millennials in general, 70%, so 7 of 10, live paycheck to paycheck. The definition of paycheck to paycheck is paying your monthly bills and having pretty much nothing left over.
Linda, listen.
Okay, what?
PSA time. If you alone make more than $100,000 a year and you are just paying bills, look at what your bills consist of. And then get rid of your iPhone, all of your subscriptions to weekly and monthly food delivery boxes, and stop drinking so hard on the weekends. I'm no Dave Ramsey, and I know that, but it doesn't take a lot of brain power to figure out why you don't have so much money. I'm going to go with you wasted 5 years for an overly priced piece of paper that says you graduated from college with a degree in pick any humanities field, and you now ask people if they want extra whip on their Frappuccino.
Well, why are you pouring me? I'm right.
But I guess there is a name for those of you who have above and beyond that $100,000. They're called Henrys. A Henry is a high earner, not rich yet. It's a term to describe people who earn high incomes, usually between $250 to $500K, but have not invested enough to be considered rich. Most Henrys' incomes are consumed by consumer spending, educational costs, and housing. Don't be a Henry, or a Karen for that matter. One more tidbit on this matter. I've been informed that $100,000 is now considered middle class, which means I'm on the poor list. So apparently my white privilege isn't so privileged. But at least I have the child tax credit, right? This past week was the first installment of the Biden tax credits. So if you see some people out there buying a third 70-inch TV to put in their apartment, throw up a thank you to Joe Biden, or just throw up.
First and foremost, I want to thank you for choosing us and believing that America is worthy of your aspirations.
Your aspirations. If we've learned anything from all of these handouts from the government, daddy for so many of you. It's that money grows on trees, except it really doesn't. And my generation will be broke for always and ever if we continue believing that lie. My kids will inherit all the debt, and their kids too. But at least with personal finances, I'll teach them upright with that whole responsibility thing.
I will not buy stupid for no reason.
Another PSA for those who may not have known, like me. If you don't want to get the monthly reminders of how much money the Biden administration is throwing away, you have to opt out. Not opt in, but opt out. And if you choose to do so and file taxes jointly with your spouse, then you both must opt out. That process may involve scanning of important documents like driver's license, which I thought was racist, your social security card, a passport, a bill with your address on it, a face scan, and then having to have a video chat with a Washington bureaucrat to verify that you are you. Not that I have any experience with this. I'm just thankful that Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is here to help. She's a resident expert on getting taxpayer money out to the masses. She lets her Instagram followers know just how to get that government money. She's one of those millennials who makes way more than $100,000, but who also complains about not having enough money. Maybe she shouldn't drive a $59,000 Tesla and park it illegally. You know those parking tickets will add up.
You don't know if I'll be able to do that.
She probably won't be able to do that, but AOC is a progressive. And if you say it's all about progressing, she can just keep repeating all the lies that progressing is progressing.
I think it absolutely is a progressive victory. And the reason for that is because if you look at the top lines of this bill, the expansion of Medicare to include vision, healthcare, and dental, when you include the Civilian Climate Corps, which was a major provision that I introduced along with Senator Markey 2 years ago as outlined in the Green New Deal. When we talk about record infrastructure investment in building thousands of EV chargers and billions of dollars in rail infrastructure in this country, we would not have an infrastructure package of this scale without the progressive movement of everyday people across the United States.
I'll say what you're thinking. How do we pay for this infrastructure proposal of $3.5 trillion, AOC? The infrastructure proposal that isn't really infrastructure much at all. And with the pinch of inflation across the country, what is your genius idea, AOC? Oh, wait, you just think it's temporary inflation and not a big deal because, it's sector specific.
Well, here's the deal with inflation is that if we do not get the root cause of these price increases right, then policy decisions could be made that could really negatively impact your life, boost unemployment, and again, increase interest rates. And we do not want that. So it's really important that we get the diagnosis right into what's going into these price increases. When you look at what actual prices are going up, it's in very specific sectors.
Absolutely. Very specific sectors that we all use daily. Building supplies, driving costs, housing. I eat every day. I mean, maybe AOC doesn't.
Well, I do cheddar if I can.
Right.
American if I have to.
AOC is a prime example of what the millennial generation suffers from. It's a lack of understanding or caring about the cost of freedom. It comes with responsibility, not entitlement. Yet we've been told that we deserve more money in the name of equity. It's our right. So she lies and encourages all of her sycophants.
So you won't take down lies or you will take down lies? I think it's just a pretty simple yes or no.
Simple, and yet we don't take the steps to live a little more simply. There is so much to say on this topic that I'm probably going to do some special tutorial videos for my generation, or really any generation, on how to live a bit more parsimoniously. Living with spending less greenbacks gives us our lives back. Until next time, stay healthy, America.
Joined now by Vicki McKenna for Culturecast. Vicki, it's great to see you this week.
Great to be here.
And you're an actual woman. I'm an actual man. We're going to talk about men who can't stand being themselves and a culture that seems to believe that because you change a pronoun, all of a sudden your biology changes. Take a look at the first story. This is one that I think everybody's already heard about. We have a trans model, whatever that means. We have a man basically pretending to be a woman. And here's the thing. Let me ask you this right off the top. Trans model, Sports Illustrated, all kinds of beautiful women applied for this. The cover went to a man pretending to be a woman. Now, explain to me, Vicki, what is the difference between this and a transvestite? We have all these transvestites reading to little kids, men who are men dressing as women. This is a man who's a man dressing as a woman. Why is one considered a protected class of new gender identity and the other just kind of a campy, fun little parade experiment in gender bending? What's the difference between the two of them?
There isn't a difference, and they're both designed. Both ideas are being promoted to, I think, subvert natural sexuality. I think the whole idea is to promote alternative sexuality, to promote it, to encourage people to engage in it, either 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, or adult men. But look at that guy on the cover of Sports Illustrated. What survey was done of subscription holders? Where is it in the United States or anywhere else where this magazine might be sold? Where is the demand for a man to pose as a woman and then wind up on the cover of Sports Illustrated? I mean, what market is this actually serving? Remember, Sports Illustrated is a men's magazine, and the swimsuit edition is strictly to titillate men. And what men out there said, what we really need, what we haven't had in forever or ever, is a guy on the cover of Sports Illustrated pretending to be a woman. Said no subscriber to Sports Illustrated ever. And yet there it is. It's not about market. It's not about making money. It is about promoting the politics of alt sexuality, whether you like it or not. And this is what the Sports Illustrated magazine is inflicting on people who already signed up to get a subscription.
Yeah, this isn't promotion, Vicki. This is proselytizing, right? This is using their power to, with all the zeal of a religious reformer, put this in your face. This is inquisitorial in some ways, right? This is the new orthodoxy. You will be made to care. We're going to interrupt our regular scheduled program to be able to point to and put that guy back up on the screen. How many boxes does he tick, right? He's black. He is pretending to be a woman.
He's black Asian.
That's right, pretending to be a woman. I mean, so tick, 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 all down the new political correct orthodoxy. And the other thing I would ask about this, so what is it, why is it that in a magazine that is dedicated to showing women, right? Women in bikinis. How does that get you there? I mean, this isn't that. This is actually a man. And as we've seen all across sports, all across other areas of human endeavor now, men, simply because men who would never be able to have these privileges, never be able to have these perks, never be able to rake in the kind of money she's going to rake in for this, he's going to rake in for this. Now, because they simply decide they're women all of a sudden, they're taking all this money away from actual women, and there's not a soul on earth who seems to care.
No, and it's not just money, it's opportunity. You're talking about men who are pretending to be women, being determined to be actual women, are allowed to parade naked around little children in locker rooms, are allowed to invade dressing rooms, are going to be getting promotions and are going to check the box for gender diversity at a company, are going to be given awards, have already displaced women in sports. In actual women in sports, whether it's Olympic sports, whether it's competition for collegiate scholarships. And I shouldn't say nobody, lots of people are outraged about this, but the moment you express outrage is the moment the mob comes after you. Almost no one can survive the mob. Someone like J.K. Rowling can survive the mob. And by the way, good on her. I disagree with nearly everything she says and believes in, but she is stuck to her guns that allowing men to declare themselves women upends opportunities, rights, protection, and privacy for women. And they have tried mightily to go after her, but I guess she's achieved enough of, a high enough station in life where she finds herself protected. But if you're at the low end, if you are just a mom who doesn't want the boy showering with your daughter in the school locker room, what argument do you have? What group of support do you have? Because the moment the mob comes for you, everybody you think is your friend will abandon you.
Look, as you pointed out, J.K. Rowling survives because her books are still selling gangbusters for her publishers. How many times have we seen in just this last week, Amazon apologizing, other publishers apologizing for actually publishing books that question transgenderism? We had a big explosion of outrage because a publisher mentioned one of her book holdings, which was a book that was very, very seriously a challenge to the transgender movement, and she had to apologize abjectly for even mentioning they published it.
Yes, here's the book, by the way.
Exactly.
I have the book.
Yep.
This is the book that they're talking about.
Irreversible damage.
She was the woman. The publishing company was attacked for publishing this book. The whole book is about the how the transgender the promotion of transgender political ideology is destroying women, not just because men are taking the role of women, but because women are being encouraged to attempt to at least as aggressively assume the role of men, and it's destroying women.
It is. And after the break, let's talk about this outrage that you mentioned. What happens when you fight back? We've got a great video clip. We'll see you out the other end. Back now with Vicki McKenna. Let's continue this conversation about the minute you stand up to this on behalf of women. When did standing up for actual women, men of all sorts, people in general, standing up for women's rights to be women? This would have been the hippest, most feminist, most progressive thing you could have done just 5 years ago. Now you are a bigot if you do it. Take a look at this clip of a woman who was simply trying to have a spa day in California, and then some dude, and dude is what he was, walking around with a semi-erect penis in the women's locker room.
I just want to be clear with you. It's okay for a man to go into the women's section, show his penis around the other women, young little girls underage. Your spa, we spa, condone that. Is that what you're saying? Like I asked. It's so he could stay there. He could stay there? What sexual orientation? I see it lets me know he's a man.
So we couldn't really hear the clerk very well, but he was basically saying, hey, this is his orientation. This is who he is. So you're just going to have to get over it. That's California
you're going to have to
law.
deal with it. Yeah. So it's walking around with a semi-erect penis, exposing himself to women in a locker room. But we're not supposed to say he. We're supposed to believe that the man walking around with a penis hanging out in the locker room, exposing himself to little children, is actually a woman. Okay, because no woman would ever do that, Duke. Just in case anybody needs a call on this one, women don't expose themselves in public in any way, in any capacity. Women don't walk around shaking their boobs or sticking their private parts out in the face of other women. That never happens. So here's a guy doing it, but we're supposed to say, oh, no. He's a woman, despite the fact that this is behavior that is completely foreign to women.
And what you just said makes powerful sense, right? Women aren't sexualized enough. And according to the progressive left, women should be as dramatically, hyperbolically, in-your-face sexual as men. The fact that they're not, women aren't jabbing their butts into men's faces, they're not walking around shaking their breasts at people's faces, that shows how co-opted they've been by the patriarchy.
I guess so.
So what we're going to do...
It's not biology, it's not nature, it's the fact that we've been co-opted by the patriarchy, that we're not rubbing our privates in everybody's face when we have an opportunity to do it.
That's right. And so what's got to happen is men have to cross the line into the domain of women and show them how it's done. They're doing this with kids too. It's the same thing with little kids. Kids aren't sexualized enough because, of course, Christianity and the patriarchy. So little boys now dressing as 6 and 7 and 8-year-old boys dressing as girls go to gay bars where they're leered at, where they're whistled at, where they're having money strapped down their panties, pushed by adult men.
That's real.
And this is normal now.
That is real. You can actually look up the story. I think the kid's name is Desmond, and he goes to basically drag bars and strips, and behaves like an adult committing, sensual acts on stage, and people stuff dollar bills down his panties. It's horrifying. But on this Wee Spa situation where here's a guy walking through the women's locker room, semi-erect penis, shoving it in people's faces, doing it on purpose to make people uncomfortable, to upend privacy and safety and security, and to make women feel as if they are just maybe one step away from an assault. I think somewhere Louis C.K. is demanding an apology because this guy was run out of his job, canceled as a comedian because he exposed himself to women. So, somebody needs to explain to me why it's not okay for Louis C.K. to expose himself to unwitting, unwilling women, but it is okay for this guy to expose himself to unwitting, unwilling women.
Well, Pee Wee Herman.
Why is one Me Too and one's not?
No, Pee Wee Herman was arrested for masturbating in a dark theater, right? I mean, rather than arrest him and give him a perv record for the rest of his life, maybe we hail him as a pioneer in the field of exposure. Maybe that's the new thing, exposure, right? Exposing yourself separates the woke from the unwoke. It is day 5 of our 5-day celebration of Mobocracy, the book written by P. Jake Jacobs, good friend of ours, about what happens when rational people, rational governments give way to the mob. And so all week long we've been looking at quotes about mobs. They go all the way back to the ancient Greeks, all the way back to the beginning of culture. People realize that it's mobs that are the problem. It's mobs who undercut civilization. It's mobs that lead to anarchy. And the problem with a mob is that all those individuals who come together to make a mob, the mob itself conveys upon them the moral ability to do things that they would never, ever in a million years do as individuals. And that's really what's so dangerous about it. The mob has a mind of its own, but it has no conscience of its own. So take a look at some of our quotes today. Quote from Tacitus, the great Roman writer. "The mob have neither judgment nor principle, ready to brawl at night for the reverse of what they desired in the morning." That's right. They're uncontainable. You can get a bunch of Antifa kids in the street in the morning to fight for one cause, and then 8 hours later, with very little coercion, you can get them to fight for exactly the opposite thing, and they'll never know better. How about this from Dan Simmons? "The sum of the crowd's IQ was far below that of its most modest single member." Think about that. You take every mob, the sum of every mob, the IQ collectively of that mob is lower than if you were to take the dumbest of the mob, separate that, and look at his or her IQ. It's that bad. The sum of the crowd's IQ was far below that of its most modest single member. Mobs have passion, not brains. That's why kids are the ones usually forming them. How about Edgar Allan Poe? "The nose of a mob is its imagination. By this time, at any time, it can be quietly led by the nose," right? And finally, Martin Luther, "The mad mob does not ask how it could be better, only that it be different. And when it then becomes worse, it must change again. Thus, mobs go from bees, they get bees for flies, and at last hornets for bees." And look at that last sentence, because it's kind of complicated. As the mobs get more irrational, more dispassionate, more angry, more lost to reason, they substitute bees, which are really useful insects, for flies. They become a pest, right? And then when they get violent, they trade in the fly for the hornets, because hornets have really nasty stings. All right, just a quick reminder that the best way to access our content is to download our Freedom Project Media app. Simply search Freedom Project in your app store and make sure you allow notifications once you've downloaded, and you'll get 18 plus new pieces of content every week. And if you enjoy our content, please join the Patriot Club. Your tax-deductible donation of $99 once a year allows us to bring you these stories every day, and we'll reward you with this lovely tumbler. Go to patriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us. Now, we want to take a moment to show some love to our Patriot members. A great big Texas yeehaw to Christina from Freona, Texas. Thanks for supporting us. That's going to do it for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.